Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. I'm happy to say I've had my first vaccine. I had it a couple of days ago, still a little bit groggy from it, but just in case anyone was worried, I had the AstraZeneca vaccine. I had some side effects, but nothing major. So if you're worried about that, please don't be. If you're offered the vaccine, take the opportunity to be vaccinated and please don't be afraid. I might talk about that later. That's not what this video is about, but I just wanted to reassure you that I'm someone who's had it recently and I'm okay now. Okay, so now for something less optimistic in tone, in fact extremely depressing. So this video is about the police, crime, sentencing and courts bill, and I've had to make a lot of notes, so I'm going to be looking at my notes a lot during this video. Because I'm not a politics student, so I've found a lot of this stuff quite hard to decipher, and I've been trying to kind of make sense of it. I was an English lit student, and now I'm doing a master's in creative writing. So a lot of this very academic legal stuff is hard for me to get into, but I've tried my best. You know, with my videos, I come at things from a more human angle, in the sense that I don't have knowledge of politics. I care about these things and I try and learn about them as best I can. And you'll probably know, if you're from the UK, about this bill, and actually it hasn't hit the headlines as much as you'd think it would, because it's a bill that actually restricts protest in this country, and gives the police extra powers to do that with any sort of protest that they deem disruptive in any sense, and they can decide the terms of that. So that's the main talking point that a lot of people are talking about, and I will talk about that as well. It does seem like the descent into fascism, and a lot of us have been saying this for a really long time, and people call you melodramatic and you feel like Cassandra seeing the fall of Troy, because a lot of people don't seem to understand that when you look at these fascist societies, when you look at Nazi Germany, it didn't start it didn't start with the war. It was all the way through the 20s. You had the Weimar Republic, you had all these social issues bubbling up, and if you look at the conditions of that, I actually ended up researching that in quite a lot of depth for a novel. You can see there's certain conditions that fascism builds within, and there's a pattern, and it seems to, there are some variants, but you can kind of chart it. And a lot of us for a while have been saying, okay, this is worrying in this country, it looks like things are getting bad, and then people think you're being melodramatic, but we are here. And yeah, so the bill has passed on a second reading, and it's a bill that gives the police extra powers to stop protest. But that's not my first point that I wanted to talk about here. First thing I wanted to talk about with regards to this is how this will impact the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller communities. So where I come from, so I'm from the Medway towns in Kent, and there is a lot of anti-traveller, anti-Roma racism around here all the time. I'm part of a community group that lets you know about local things going on, and people posting pictures of cats, and there's nice things, but sometimes there's a lot of, oh, have you seen, there's travellers here or there's travellers there, and then you get all these awful comments that I try to report, and my family try to report a lot, saying about, oh, these travellers have stolen things, or they've done this, or they've done that. And it is this really acceptable racism that round here is pretty big. I'd say it's probably the biggest racism we have around here, and it's really commonplace. So part of this bill that a lot of people aren't talking about, and that I have been looking into because of different people that I follow online, is what this bill actually means for the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community. And what they've kind of sneaked under the radar in this bill are laws that are going to discriminate against the Gypsy, Traveller and Roma community simply for existing at this point, because things are already pretty bad for that community. I've spoken about there is a lot of racism. I don't know how to describe how normal that is for there to be racism here against Gypsies and Travellers. But I went through the bill, and it's part 4, unauthorised encampments, and I'm not a politics student, so I'm just trying to kind of decipher it. But basically it's breaking the law if you are a person aged 18 or over, if you're residing or intending to reside on land without the consent of the occupier of the land, if you have or intend to have at least one vehicle with you, and you commit an offence if you fail to comply with the request from the police as soon as reasonably practical, or if you re-enter the land with the intention of residing there, or if you intend to put a vehicle on the land. And if people are found to be breaking these laws, then the police under this bill can actually seize property. So if a constable reasonably suspects that an offence has been committed, then the constable may seize and remove any relevant property that appears to the constable. So that's any possessions, any vehicles. And if you look at the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller way of life, that can mean taking away somebody's home and their livelihood and everything that they own. So in my research, the laws were already pretty skewed against Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people, because until this bill they could be removed for damaging land, for threatening language, or for having more than 5 vehicles. So under this new bill, they can now be removed if the police think that they're going to cause distress to the public. And this is scary because the public are already extremely racist against Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people. They do not want these people around. Just them existing will be used to say that they are disrupting. And also it's so dodgy, you know, they can be breaking the law for a display of any writing, sign or other visible representation that is threatening, abusive or insulting. So, you know, that sort of abusive language. But what does that mean exactly? Because what we see in these situations is that communities like the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community will often be on the receiving end of abuse, and then when they give abuse right back, they are then seen as the villains and it's used as an excuse. I'm scared that will be used as an excuse to get rid of them. And this is something that was already in the Tories manifesto. So in the Tories' last manifesto, they said that they wanted like tighter controls on travellers, and they always get around it by saying, oh, well, they're on illegal land. But the reality is, as far as I understand, it seems to be that there are very few legal traveller sites. You have to be put on a waiting list for that, and people are left on these waiting lists for a really long time, so they can't actually move from place to place. There is nowhere to go. So what are they going to do in this situation with the police having these new powers? When they are told to leave, but they have got nowhere to go, the police will then take their possessions, take their homes, and then what will happen to them and what will happen to their children? And also we lose a whole community of people and their culture and their history. And it says here, when they say about seizing property, if it belongs to the person the constable suspects has committed the offence. So suspects, and if you think about the racism that there already is in this country and within the police force against Gypsy, Roma, Traveller people, what does that mean? The police decide who they think caused an offence, who they think is going to cause disruption. It's not fair, because I know what's going to happen. I know what would happen around here. You know, sometimes we have travellers that settle around here for a while in different places, and the local community goes all up in arms about it, even though they're doing no harm to anyone. So these people will call the police and say that they're causing disruption, or they're causing offence, or this one was rude to me or something, and then the community can be moved on by the police, but they've got nowhere to go, they can't move, their property's taken, and then, like, how can that be allowed to happen? And this bill has passed the second reading, and everyone is talking about the right to protest, which is like a terrifying thing that I will get onto. But this thing passed on the second reading, and Labour were going to abstain on this, and this is what I can't understand. And I'm not a politician, so I'm not up to date on all these things, and it can take me a while sometimes to educate myself and read all these documents and try and understand it. But Keir Starmer is supposed to be a human rights lawyer, and they were going to abstain on this bill that not only criminalises protest and allows the police to set the bounds of protest and allows the Home Secretary to set the bounds of protest, but something that puts a marginalised minority community at such risk. And the Labour Party, this is why I left the Labour Party and why I'm so angry, and I actually have something of a hatred for them at this point, and I wish that I didn't. But the Labour Party is the opposition. It's supposed to be a party of socialists. They're supposed to stand up for the underdog, for the people in society that might not be popular, but because it's the right thing to do. So all Keir Starmer wants to do, it seems, is appeal to the most amount of voters. And in other videos I've spoken about how that's ridiculous, because it's not really, you're not winning people over if you're actually just moving to the centre or to the right. You've just shifted, you've not changed any minds. And Keir Starmer clearly must have thought that people didn't care about the Gypsy, Roma, Traveller community, or, I mean, this is more likely that it would play well because it's a very popular form of bigotry and it would be a vote winner. And I don't want that for the Labour Party. Like, it disgusts me. And I'm so angry about it that I can't put it into words that they're like this. That this is our opposition right now with one of the worst Tory governments we've had. And they will not stand up for the marginalised because they don't think it's a vote winner. We've already had Keir Starmer abstain on the Spy Cops Bill, which allows police, when they're undercover, to rape or to murder, and to do that free from consequences if they can say that, you know, they're undercover at the time. And this is a supposed human rights lawyer. We had racism in the party. We've had Diane Abbott relentlessly bullied. So many other black members of the party being ruthlessly bullied, and it's all documented, and Keir Starmer didn't do anything about it. We had the report, we know that it happened, and he didn't do anything. He's been purging the left from the party under the guise of being this unity candidate, but I mean, the worst thing is that I do not trust him to stand up for the rights of the people who need him to stand up for them. And that he cannot. How can that be the Labour Party? What do we even have? Like, we don't have another party here in this country. We don't have another socialist party, and I wish we did, because I don't know what I can do. I don't know. I don't want the Tories to get in. I might have to vote for Labour, but I hate what they've become. Is it too much to ask for an opposition that opposes and that stands up for people? Where on earth are they? The only reason that they switched their position from abstaining was because of the tragic death of Sarah Everard, which you've probably heard about. So a young woman went missing in London, and sadly they found her body and she'd been murdered, and allegedly murdered by a Met police officer. We don't know for sure, or we can't say for sure because it hasn't gone to trial. You know, legally speaking, we can't say that. But obviously it caused a lot of distress, and a lot of groups came forward to say that we need to do something about the safety of women on the streets. And women and allies held a vigil at Clapham Common. And I think Reclaim the Night was one of the groups that was involved in this, and they tried to have conversations with the police about how this could be done safely under COVID, and the police just weren't having it. So there were options on the table for how this could be done safely. The police said no. So people went anyway. People went to this vigil. And when it got to the night time, when it got dark, the police started using force on the protesters. They started throwing women to the ground and manhandling them. And think about that in the context of this woman potentially being murdered by a Met police officer. And there was uproar. And because of the uproar about this, rightfully so, and the activism of a group called Sisters Uncut, because of people like that, it seems like the Labour Party suddenly realised, oh wait, like, it looks kind of bad if we abstain and give the police more powers and stop the right to protest. So they changed their mind, but they only changed their mind because they thought it would play better with voters. Like, where is the moral core? You know, you can't run a political party based on, what does everyone think about these issues? You know, like, you can't run a party like that, because you will hit issues like discrimination against Gypsy, Roma and traveller people, where the majority of people are bigoted and they are hateful. And what are you going to do? You're going to play into that to win votes? Like, the whole point of the left, of socialism, is not to join those people and to say, like, yeah, we want you. The idea is to change their minds, to put the alternative to them, to stand up for people that need to be stood up for, and Labour is not doing that. And I'm sorry, I'm so angry about it. Like, I could cry, and it sounds so, I know it probably seems dramatic, but I actually am at that point where I feel like I could cry. I feel so hopeless and helpless. And it doesn't help that I'm somebody who does have disability, so I'm not someone who has been able to actually go out physically and protest, so I think that just makes it even worse, feeling like I'm just so, like, unable to do anything. But I don't think I'll ever forgive Keir Starmer for what's been done to the Labour Party. I'll never forgive those people, the people that took over the party, the people that trashed socialism and trashed Jeremy Corbyn. They were so scared of socialism that they allowed the Tories to get in. And still now they're trying to destroy the left of the party, and they presented themselves as the unity candidates. And so many of us, like, we were fools because we were taken in and we thought, okay, well, Keir Starmer's been elected, he's the unity candidate, you know, it's democratic, let's see how this goes. And look what's happened. I can't believe it. And he's suspending the left-wingers because they are left-wing and they're socialists, and it's absolutely appalling, and I can't put into words my disgust about it. Okay, so the rest of this bill, which is about the big major point that people are talking about, is the right to protest. So at this point, if you're considered to be public nuisance, that is now criminalised. I think, I don't, again, I'm not like a law student or anything. I think that was sort of in common law before. I'm not sure, but it's going to become like an official, like, bigger deal at this point. But it means that police can stop any protest now at this point. They can stop a one-person protest, they can stop a march, they can stop a vigil, anything like that. If it's causing any sort of public disturbance, which they decide the terms of, which Priti Patel decides the terms of, if something is too loud, if one speaker is too loud, and I think I wrote this down here, if the noise generated by persons taking part in the procession may result in serious disruption to the activities of an organisation which are carried on in the vicinity of the procession, then that is illegal. If that impact may be significant, if the noise generated by the person carrying on in the protest may have a relevant impact on persons in the vicinity of the protest. So this can be done for a one-person protest. And I ask you, I mean, how can a person protest? How can you protest at this point? This bill, I can't believe this got voted through. It still has to go for, I believe, a third reading and it goes through the Lords, but I mean, I think it's probably going to pass. But that defeats the object of a protest. You protest because you want the people in power to hear you. And that is our right. That is our democratic right in this country. So now the only legal way that you can protest is if you do it quietly and you don't cause any disruption and basically they don't hear you. So essentially, the police can, any protest that matters, and in fact, like a vigil, a single person on the street making too much noise, that's it. Like that won't be legal. Like you won't be able to do that. And like, I can't believe this. And actually I say I can't believe this, but I can believe this. I just don't want to believe this. We saw this coming. Like we saw this coming. And people told us that we were hysterical, but the signs were all there. And I am not completely clued in on all this stuff. You know, I have to do the research. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politics student, but I do try and follow it. And I saw these things were happening. So many people saw these things were happening. And then here it is, the bill. And then you're not seeing it on the news, you're not seeing it on BBC, on ITV, nothing. And if you ever hear anything about it, nothing about Gypsy, Roma, traveller people, nothing about any of that. It's just about the safety of women and girls, which of course is important, but this bill also doesn't do. This bill doesn't do anything to protect women and girls. And I remember when the choice was between Jeremy Corbyn and this Tory government, and people knew what this Tory government were like. People supposedly on the left, they're not really on the left, you know, they're centrists and they're basically in bed with the right. And they said the lesser of two evils was the Tories. They thought that because, and here's the thing, Jeremy Corbyn is not even that radical. Jeremy Corbyn was the compromise. I've seen a lot of people say this. Jeremy Corbyn was, in some ways, too nice. He was the compromise. That was the compromise, what he offered. That was a way out for our society. And people mocked us for being so devastated when he didn't win, like it was some sort of cult and like it was about him as a person and like we thought he was Jesus. It was never about Corbyn. It was about what he represented and what the society that he wanted to create and that the people around him wanted to create and which would have changed our lives. And these people, these centrists, right, these supposed left-wingers who've now infiltrated the left are now like, oh no, like, oh dear, like we're descending into fascism. How on earth could this have happened? And it's like, you were complicit. You were completely complicit in all this, and now you say, oh no, now the Tories have got too much power and this is bad. And I'm fed up of them. I'm fed up of these people. I'm so angry when I see them. I see them on Twitter all the time, and a lot of them are like blue ticks. And they're sort of like, they will always comment on these issues with a kind of centrist left sort of stance, but they won't stand for anything important. You know, they won't speak up when it's something that's really important. They're still pretending that Jeremy Corbyn was the devil, even though it's pretty clear at this point that they were wrong and he wasn't. But they gotta stick with that because of their egos. They can't just admit at this point that maybe they were wrong about it. Maybe they were misled. Like, maybe the media and the way they presented Corbyn, maybe it was really skewed, as we know that it was. Like, they can't even admit that because of their egos. They have to keep going with it. And these people are in bed with the Tories, and this is how the Tories do it. This is how they're doing it, and I just can't... I'm so angry. I'm so angry. And yet, people, these supposed people on the left, voted Tory because they hated Jeremy Corbyn, because they hated socialism so much. These people are not socialists. They are not socialists. I don't know what they're doing in Labour. If you're not a democratic socialist, what on earth are you doing in Labour? Make your own party. And then the statue issue that everyone is talking about. And you can get a maximum of 10 years for damaging a statue or a memorial. So basically the Winston Churchill statue. And you would not believe, I mean, if you're from this country, if you're from the UK, you probably would believe. When the march was going on about Kill the Bill the other day in London, about this bill, there was a protest against it. They had police stationed around the Churchill statue, and they told the police to protect Churchill at all costs. This is a long dead racist old man, a sexist, racist, nasty old man with the blood of millions on his hands, the blood of so many people. And they are more interested in protecting his statue. They have the police standing around this statue like, I can't tell you, I mean, how ridiculous it looked. It looked ridiculous. This government cares more about statues than it does about people. Like, the obsession this country has with Churchill is absolutely deranged anyway. I mean, Churchill was a terrible, awful person. Like, he was against the suffragettes. He said that Indians were a beastly people with a beastly religion, and he caused the deaths of so many Indians in the Bengal famine. Like, there's so much Churchill has done, and maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But you know, I would get so much stick for that. I'll make it anyway, but people are so defensive of Churchill for some weird reason. It doesn't make any sense to me. They say we wouldn't have won the war without him. Why then was he voted out by the people that came home from the war as soon as they came back? I mean, come on. I mean, you can like prove from his own speech he was a white supremacist and an awful, terrible man. And this isn't like even a big thing. He's not even alive anymore. But the fact that people in this country right now is a vote winner. That's how fascist we are becoming. You know, it's this weird fascist patriotism where the image of a long dead racist means more to us than our marginalised communities. And you know what? So what? So what if somebody vandalises a statue? You know, it's not a life and death issue, you know. Nobody's getting hurt, nobody's getting killed, but you could get 10 years for that. And where on earth is Keir Starmer? What is wrong with these people? They are so concerned with optics and playing it, and I'm sure that it's all just a game to them. There are so few politicians, and there are some that actually are in it for the right reasons. These people are there for their egos and what it looks like and their own. It's like they play it like a game. Like it's a game to them, like it's a hobby, it's a career. It's not because they really care about people. And why on earth would you want politicians that aren't in it primarily because they care about people? I can understand politicians getting things wrong and making mistakes, but what I can't forgive is when they become... their fame is more important to them. Their reputation is more important to them. You know, Keir Starmer wants to be Prime Minister. He's wanted to be Prime Minister since he was young. Diane Abbott said something quite funny about that recently. He's determined he's going to make it to the top. This is all a game. Like, he does not care. This so-called human rights lawyer, if he actually cared, how could this be happening? How could he whip the Labour Party to abstain? So that basically means that he would have ordered them to abstain on this bill, just like he ordered them to abstain on the Spy Cops bill. And now they have the cheek, they have the nerve, because you know what, some of them are good people like Diane Abbott, who actually said on that morning, when Keir Starmer was still telling them to abstain, that she was not going to abstain, and she actually told us, Keir Starmer is whipping us to abstain right now. That is how we know, because of the good Labour MPs that are still in there because they still think there's hope in the Labour Party. They are far more optimistic than me. I think they're good people, but it's gone now for me. It's gone. Like, there's nothing that can be done in that environment. But several of these MPs, the good ones, came out and said, there is no way that we are abstaining on this bill. Not gonna happen. It's anti-human rights, it's anti-protest, it's fascist, like, there is no way we're abstaining. But Keir Starmer was gonna whip the party to abstain, and that was his original plan. And all these people on his front bench, and all these big figures who've suddenly risen under Keir Starmer, they were gonna vote with him. They were going to put their morality aside and just, yeah, sure, vote with the leader. Let's abstain on this fascist bill. And these are not people that should be anywhere near power. Do we really think that people who don't put their morals first and people first should be in charge? I think these people are fascinated by and they're in love with politics as a game, as a system, you know, as something interesting. It's like Game of Thrones to them. The actual activists, the actual MPs that matter, people like Diane Abbott, they just get torn to shreds. Look what happened to Rebecca Long-Bailey. Look what happened to Jeremy Corbyn. And these are people that are in politics not for the fame or for their egos, but because they care about people and causes. And I feel we do need some sort of change, some sort of revolution, because politics is a joke right now. It really, really is, because it's not democratic. It's supposedly democratic, but it's not. It's all manoeuvres and games from these people in charge and these MPs and these politicians. And you can't get a straight answer out of them, you know? I want to scream at Keir Starmer. I want to yell and ask him, why do you keep abstaining? Why are you doing this? What is your goal? And nobody will ask him. And the media is complicit because the media want the Tories in, and Keir Starmer is weak. The reason the media hated Jeremy Corbyn so much was because he was a danger. He had the potential with his vision to inspire a lot of people to rise up and take down the Tories, which is why the media hated him. The media can't be bothered with Keir Starmer. He's just like a figure of comedy to them, you know? He's not a huge threat. He's just sort of there, the occasional joke. Sometimes they're with him. They are afraid of Keir Starmer because he offers no alternative. He's no threat to the Tories. He's no threat to the way of life. And if Keir Starmer even, like, gets in, if Labour gets in, which I can't see happening, what will change? Nothing will change. So it's a safe bet for these people anyway, isn't it? Because society will just remain as it is. Anyway, I'm sorry for ranting, and again, it's not scripted. It's just a spoken video, and I just can't express to you how I feel gaslit. I feel, and I don't use that word lightly, I truly feel like I'm going mad, and I have to remind myself sometimes that it's not me that's going mad, because I feel like I'm seeing these terrible things happen, and I'm seeing the opposition do nothing, and I'm seeing the media not report on it, and I'm seeing it getting worse and worse and worse, and then we get called dramatic and like we're snowflakes for caring about people, and I feel like I'm going mad. But I do think underneath it all, I guess I just feel really angry. Like, I feel so angry, I can't put it into words to you. Like, I feel like I couldn't even unleash that level of anger. Like, I don't know if I even physically could. It's so helpless that we're in this situation from the place of hope that I felt when we had Jeremy Corbyn, and at least there was socialism. Like, there was a chance at socialism. And it, you know what, it like I said, like, that was the compromise. And what we saw is we saw people destroy socialism. We saw these privileged, centrist, celebrity people. We saw them trash it to pieces. They destroyed every chance of socialism that we had for this society. And now they sit there like, oh, the Tories are so bad, making jokes about them, when they enable the Tories every day. I'm so fed up of it. I'm just so tired and so angry about it. And I'm also aware that, like, even now, this thing, they voted on this, and it passed on the second reading. And people will say, oh, well, it's not passed yet. And I've heard rumours that the government are going to push it back so it doesn't pass until June or something, and they're saying that's a victory. Maybe I'm a pessimist, but that's not a victory. That is just them trying to make sure that people don't kick off. You know, they don't want, like, huge opposition. They'll distract us with other things, and then they'll pass it. And you know what? Even if it doesn't pass, which I'm pretty sure it will, it got to this point. It has got to this point in 2021 in Britain, and I am afraid of fascism in this country, and I feel like dramatic and stupid for saying that, but I am actually afraid of it. It's my biggest fear because I can see it happening, and it really scares me. It actually really scares me, and I don't know how to express that, because it's, yeah, I don't really know how to express that fear, and it's like this growing fear. It's like a background fear, and it keeps happening. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse, slowly and quietly. And people will not realise until it's too late. People never realise until it's too late. And then when it happens, everyone will ask, why didn't anyone stop it? That's how these things happen. But that's my biggest fear now, and it's happening. And I don't know, like, it really does scare me. Okay, thanks for watching. It's a rant. I had to make this because I just feel so confused by it all, and I do feel like I'm going mad sometimes because there's so much of this stuff that so much of it just gets erased and forgotten about, and at least when I make a video I can remember, like, this is what happened then, so that when we hit the next stage I can kind of map it, if that makes sense. But yeah, okay, I love you loads and I will see you really soon. Okay, bye!